get out now.
We not cleared this.
There's blood all over it, though. You want to...
Can't back out. Everybody back out.
Dismembered limbs, a head boiling in a pot, and a blood-soaked home. These were the horrifying sight that greeted officers during a welfare check at the Guy family's residence. Now, every parent dreams of giving their child the best, teaching them life lessons, nurturing them, and always keeping a protective eye, even after they've grown into adults. That was true for the Guy family, but tragically this deep bond became the very reason behind one of the most horrifying parental murders in history. Before we dive in, a warning. This story isn't for the faint of heart. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The chilling details are not only graphic, but will shake you to your core. This is, without a doubt, one of the most brutal crimes a child could ever commit against their parents. And soon, you'll understand why. To really understand what went down, we first need to take a closer look at the parents involved. Now, if you're imagining them as strict or abusive types, think again. They were actually the complete opposite. Starting with the father, Joel Guy Sr. Those who were close to him called him Michael, so for the rest of this story, we'll stick with that name. Michael was born on February 10, 1955, and he worked as a pipeline engineer. With his experience in the field, it's safe to say he was doing well for himself. He earned a solid salary, enough to comfortably support his growing family. Anyone who knew Michael would tell you he wasn't just kind, he was the type of person who made you feel seen and cared for, always willing to lend a hand or give advice, even when you didn't ask for it. He took immense pride in everything he did, whether it was his career or his family, and he made sure the people around him felt that pride too. If you were close to Michael, you knew he wasn't just a dad or a husband. He was someone who genuinely cared and wanted to make sure everyone around him was doing well. Now, Michael had 3 daughters from his first marriage. While the reasons behind the divorce weren't entirely clear, one thing was certain. The daughters held no grudges against their father. They had always maintained a good relationship with him, and that didn't change when he remarried. Michael's second wife, Lisa, was as kind-hearted as he was. Just like Michael, Lisa was someone who made everyone feel welcome and cared for. His daughters quickly warmed up to her, and there was no drama or resentment. Lisa treated them like her own children, showering them with love and affection. This was evident when one of Michael's daughters testified in court, explaining how Lisa became a mother figure in her life. She even went as far as to get an engagement ring that resembled Lisa's. She remembered all the small details about Lisa, the favorite shirt, the favorite cups, and everything else that made Lisa so special to her.
Lisa's been in my life my entire life, and they had said it 3, but she's been my entire memory. And so we would go in the summers. Dad would have us for a month in the summer because they always lived so far away, and Angela and I would go visit for the entire month. But the dynamics of that was my mom was a single mom, so there's struggles with single moms. But when we went to Lisa's house, her cabinets were stocked with food, and she greeted Dad like the perfect Walton family. When they would come home, dinner would be cooked with meat and side dishes, and there would be candy in the shelves, and I just would watch her, and I watched her growing up like she was the mom, or that dream that you have to have a double parent home, to where she loved, like, I so wanted to be this woman that my first engagement ring was her exact engagement ring, and I wanted to be the mom she was. She would sit in her little brown shirt. She had a really high arch in her foot, and just with her cup, I wanted to even, at certain points in my life, I walked around with a cup that had like the little square placement under it, because I wanted to be her. I wanted to be the mom that she was.
Just like you just heard, this wasn't a mom who abused her children or mistreated them in a way that made them feel unloved. It's clear just from the words of her stepdaughter alone that Lisa poured love into every single member of her family. Additionally, Lisa worked in human resources at an engineering firm and was known for being reliable and generous. She was the kind of person who, no matter how busy she was, would stop to comfort a stranger in distress. She had a big heart, always putting others first. From this perspective, it was evident that both Michael and Lisa were known for their giving nature, and to everyone around them, they seemed like the perfect couple. Soulmates living a perfect life. However, everything began to change when Michael and Lisa welcomed their only biological child together, Joel Guy Jr. That moment marked the start of a shift no one could have foreseen. Unlike his warm and kind parents, Joel was reportedly the complete opposite, cold and distant to almost everyone. In fact, Joel Guy Jr.'s life before 2016 remains a mystery in many ways. Even his half-sisters, who grew up alongside him, admitted they didn't really know him. Whenever they visited, Joel would lock himself in his room, avoiding any interaction with family. On the rare occasions he did speak, he was dismissive and rude, treating his relatives as if they were beneath him. Over time, most of the family distanced themselves, choosing not to engage with Joel unless absolutely necessary. Joel's behavior was fueled by an inflated ego, believing he was the smartest person in the room at all times. This confidence was bolstered during his school years, especially when he performed well academically. In his final years of high school, he attended the prestigious Louisiana School for Math, Science, and the Arts, a magnet school known for its small elite class sizes. Getting accepted into the class of 2006 only reinforced Joel's belief in his superiority. After high school, he enrolled at George Washington University for one semester before transferring to Louisiana State University, where he pursued studies to become a plastic surgeon. However, Joel never became a plastic surgeon, or held any job for that matter. While he was in school, up until the age of 28, he lived entirely off his mother Lisa's income. Lisa, who worked full-time in human resources at Oak Ridge Engineering, sent her paychecks directly to Joel. Michael and Lisa decided to fully support Joel so he could focus on his studies without worrying about finances. They paid for his tuition, housing, and other expenses, hoping he'd graduate quickly and start his career, but their generosity backfired. Joel began to see this financial support not as a gift, but as something he was entitled to, his birthright. He believed his parents owed him this money simply because they were his parents. Though he claimed to be working hard toward his goals, Joel was far less focused on school than he led his parents to believe. Living alone in Baton Rouge, he spent his time doing whatever he wanted, completely oblivious to the financial strain he was placing on his family. He didn't understand or care about the sacrifices his parents were making for him. However, in 2016, things began to change. Michael, Joel's father, lost his job and took a hard look at their finances. He realized that he and Lisa could retire if they stopped supporting Joel and sold their family home. Excited for this new chapter, Michael and Lisa shared their plans with their daughters in the family group chat. They explained that they intended to move into Michael's parents' home and stop financially supporting Joel. However, they were nervous about how Joel would react to the news. At 28 years old, Joel had never been financially independent, and his parents worried about what he would do once the financial support stopped. Despite their concerns, Thanksgiving that year seemed like a turning point. For the Guy family, Thanksgiving was always a big deal, a time when everyone gathered at Michael and Lisa's home to celebrate, including their daughters, extended family, and their new families. So just like any other normal family, that year was very joyful for the Guy family. The adults gathered in the garage, enjoying their cigarettes and catching up, while the kids ran around, and the aroma of delicious food filled the house. By the way, I post true crime and new cases here every day. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, please consider subscribing. It helps a lot. Now, at every Thanksgiving, there's always that one person who locks themselves away, avoiding everyone. And in the Guy family, that was always Joel. However, this year was different, shockingly so. For the first time ever, Joel actively engaged with his family. He surprised everyone by playing with his stepsister's kids, children whose names his sisters doubted he even knew before that day. He brought them upstairs to his old room and gifted them toys his parents had lovingly preserved from his childhood. Joel laughed, joked, and even posed for family photos, a rarity that caught everyone off guard. His sudden shift in behavior was so remarkable that his sisters whispered to each other about how he might finally be turning over a new leaf. What made Joel's transformation even more puzzling was its timing. Just weeks earlier, Lisa had told him that she had given her 2 weeks' notice at work. She and Michael planned to retire, sell the family home, and stop financially supporting him. Originally, they'd intended to break the news at Christmas, but Lisa decided to tell Joel early, hoping to give him time to prepare for independence. Everyone braced for a meltdown or tantrum, but instead, Joel seemed fine. More than fine, actually. He appeared happier and more social than anyone had ever seen him. His family took this as a positive sign. Maybe this was the wake-up call Joel needed. Perhaps he'd already made peace with the idea of standing on his own 2 feet and was reconnecting with his family as part of a fresh start. One of his sisters even mentioned to Michael that Joel might be trying to repair their relationship. Still, Michael held firm that they wouldn't resume funding his lifestyle, no matter how well he was behaving. Little did they know, Joel's cheerful demeanor masked something far darker. While he was smiling and bonding with his family, he was also laying the groundwork for a chilling plan. That day, Joel brought over 2 large plastic tubs, which he carried into the house without much explanation. They seemed heavy, but no one thought to ask what they contained. What they didn't know was that Joel had spent weeks plotting his parents' murders. Those tubs held the tools he intended to use in his gruesome plan. As it turned out, Joel wasn't handling the loss of his financial lifeline as gracefully as he appeared. When Lisa told him they were cutting him off, Joel didn't see it as a push toward independence. He saw it as a betrayal. He decided to take matters into his own hands, crafting a plan to murder his parents, frame his father for his mother's death, and stage it all as a murder-suicide. In Joel's warped mind, he was a genius, capable of orchestrating the perfect crime. His education and endless hours of watching crime, shows like Law and Order, convinced him that he could pull it off without a hitch. But while Joel once excelled in academics, his arrogance blinded him to his own shortcomings. So, instead of heading back to his apartment like usual, Joel decided to stick around at his parents' house for 2 whole days. At first, Lisa and Michael probably thought it was a nice change. Maybe Joel was feeling sentimental about the family house before they sold it. After all, with Lisa preparing for retirement, they were all gearing up for a big life change, and the idea that Joel might actually want to spend some time with his family seemed like a nice, albeit unexpected gesture. But things took a strange turn. Just 2 weeks before Lisa was set to retire, her co-workers and boss had been planning a celebratory send-off for her. She was well-liked, dependable, and a hard worker who would always communicate if anything was off. So when November 28th came around and Lisa didn't show up for work, Jennifer, her boss, started to worry. It wasn't like Lisa to just vanish without a word, especially since she'd been so involved in the retirement celebration plans. Jennifer tried calling her several times, but there was no answer. Then she reached out to Michael, but he didn't pick up either. That was strange. Lisa and Michael were the kind of people who always made sure to check in, even if something came up. This wasn't adding up, and Jennifer knew it. So after a couple more unanswered calls, Jennifer made the decision to call the non-emergency police line and request a welfare check at the Guy family home.
My name is Jennifer Whited, W-H-I-T-E-D.
And what company are you with?
Jacobs Engineering.
And what's a good callback for you guys?
It is 865-216-6625.
Okay, what's the employee's name?
Lisa Guy, G-U-Y. Her husband's name is Joel, Joel.
Should he be there too? Does he live with her?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
And they do have a dog named Jake. I think he's a big baby.
Okay. How old is she, do you know?
She is in her, I think, late 50s.
Do you know if she has any medical issues?
No, I mean, she has high blood pressure, but that's all that I know of. Yeah, I know that their house is for sale, and they are moving, and she is leaving our company, but that's supposed to be Friday, and this definitely isn't like her just not to show up.
When the officers first arrived at the house, everything seemed normal, so they didn't think much of it and were about to call it off. But Jennifer, Lisa's boss, wasn't convinced. She had a gut feeling something wasn't right, so she called again. What they uncovered next was something no one could have prepared for. During a thorough check, the officers noticed a few strange things. The house had a "for sale" sign out front, but something seemed off. There was no lockbox on the front door for a realtor's key, and the doorknob didn't look like it had been there long. It didn't even match the door. It had obvious signs of being tampered with, likely with a screwdriver. Not wasting any time, the officers decided to check the back of the house. And that's when things took an even darker turn. The back door was missing its doorknob altogether. One officer peered through the hole where the knob should have been and was immediately hit with a blast of heat from inside the house. But that wasn't the worst part. There was a sharp, chemical smell hanging in the air. It was the kind of smell that instantly tells you something was seriously wrong. The officer looked closer and saw bottles of bleach scattered across the floor, still unopened. But the clues didn't stop there. He also noticed groceries that had been dropped at the front door, like someone had rushed inside without finishing what they were doing. That was enough for them to make their move. They headed back to the front, found an unlocked vehicle with the garage door opener inside, and used it to get access. The officers entered the house, and what happened next was all caught on body cam footage.
Hello, Sheriff's Office! There's Don walking in.
Oh, shit. I hear a dog howling.
Knox County Sheriff's Office!
Damn hammer.
Police! Police Department, Sheriff's Office!
The pot you saw earlier? Yeah, that was the same one Joel used to boil his mother's head for about a day. It's chilling when you think about it. Investigators first found a table with the guy's wallets and a sledgehammer on top, followed by another table with long guns. As they made their way up the stairs, they could hear a dog intermittently barking. They then spotted Michael on the floor in a hallway, and eventually discovered the dismembered bodies submerged in a solution in the bathroom. Among the other items found in the home were sewer line cleaner, a bag of baking soda, drain opener, a bottle of muriatic acid, lye, hydrogen peroxide, several bottles of bleach, a spray bottle, gloves, and trash bags. Investigators also came across a note inside an open suitcase which included the name and address of a Louisiana Ace hardware store, as well as a reference to sewer line cleaner. Given the hazardous chemicals, the Knox County Sheriff's Office hazmat team had to step in for biohazard removal. With the overwhelming amount of evidence, the KCSO Forensics Unit worked through Monday night and into the next day to process the crime scene. Now, what really happened after that Thanksgiving? On November 26th, Joel Guy Jr. attacked and killed his father in a second-floor exercise room while his mom was out shopping at Walmart. The scene was chaotic, with torn blinds, blood splattered on the walls, and an overturned Bowflex machine. The amount of blood was beyond horrific. The struggle must have been brutal. The poor man's clothes were shredded from the knife wounds, and it was reported that he was stabbed at least 40 times. However, this is just an estimate. According to the autopsy, since most of the tissue was gone when they found the body, the actual number of stabs could never be fully determined. But it doesn't stop there. Joel also dismembered the body, leaving his father's hands behind in the room. When his mom came home from Walmart, Joel tricked her into going upstairs. She was in such a rush that her groceries got scattered across the foyer. But when she reached the top of the stairs, Joel ambushed her, stabbing her in the back over and over, just like he did to his father. Blood was everywhere. The prosecution later claimed he used so much force to decapitate her that her head actually broke. And then, get this, he just chopped her up like it was nothing, then put her head in that same boiling pot on the stove. According to the medical examiner, Lisa was stabbed at least 31 times, and 9 of her ribs were completely severed. During the trial, the forensic examiner testified that the head wasn't just severed, but had been forcefully broken off. Both victims had their arms and legs detached, Mikhail at the waist and Lisa at the knees, and their body parts were placed in a bin filled with chemicals to help dissolve them. This was the very same bin that Joel had brought into the house during Thanksgiving. After death, both bodies had deep cuts made so that the chemicals could more easily penetrate the body's main cavities. So you can probably imagine how heartbreaking it must have been for both of them, loving their child and spoiling him all the way into adulthood, only for them to be brutally murdered like this. It's beyond evil. But despite Michael loving his son so much, he didn't go down without a fight. Joel sustained several cuts on his hands, including a deep gash on his left thumb. Around 3:30 p.m., he was seen in the first aid section at Walmart, buying bandages and ointment for his hand injuries. He also picked up isopropyl alcohol and hydrogen peroxide. It was also around this point that Joel returned to his apartment, likely because he was too lazy to continue with his plan. After spending 2 intense days carrying out his crime, it seems that for the first time, he was exhausted. He probably felt he had worked harder than ever before and needed a break. So, he headed back to his apartment, possibly to rest. Little did he know, it was exactly during this time that the police also uncovered what he had done. The police began questioning those closest to Michael and Lisa. When they inquired about who had been at the house that weekend, everyone pointed to Joel. His sisters revealed that he was about to be cut off financially and that his behavior over Thanksgiving had been strangely out of character. The soiled clothes found at the crime scene matched the description given by his sisters, and when investigators found a book bag containing a notebook filled with Joel's meticulous plan, it became undeniable. He was behind the murders. The only thing left to do was finalize the paperwork for his arrest. Now, the day after the bodies were discovered, Joel was arrested while heading back to the house. In his trunk, police found a KitchenAid meat grinder, a chilling indicator that he wasn't done with the gruesome process yet. But what really exposed Joel's intentions was what he had written in his notebook. From the gruesome methods of killing and dismemberment to his strategy for destroying the bodies and erasing forensic evidence, every step was carefully thought out. He planned to grind the bodies, destroy all DNA evidence with bleach and lye, and even set a fire to cover his tracks. He went as far as faking an alibi by scheduling a text message from his mother's phone, attempting to erase any evidence that could point back to him.
Get carving knives to make small pieces. Get sledgehammer, crush bones. Bring blender and food grinder, grind meat.
Keep going.
Get bleach, denature proteins. Get plastic bin for denaturation process.
Keep going.
Does not matter where they're killed. Just get rid of bloody spots to prevent evidence of time of death, not the mattress or the couches. Get rid of bodies inside house. There and my DNA already there.
Joel's motive, driven by a financial incentive, was also clearly outlined in the notebook. He calculated his parents' life insurance policies, assets, and joint property with the intention of inheriting everything. His obsession with money was evident as he described in detail how he would inherit the full value of his mother's assets, including her life insurance, the family homes, and other financial resources. In the weeks leading up to the murder, Joel continued to buy supplies like knives, acid, and plastic bins, keeping the notebook hidden in his backpack alongside his school books. He made sure to pay in cash, thinking he was being smart and inconspicuous, but in reality, Joel's arrogance and sense of entitlement were his downfall. He believed his meticulous preparations would guarantee his success, unaware that he was overlooking the most basic human realities. Joel was so spoiled and out of touch with the real world that even while erasing his tracks, he grew lazy and decided to take a break from his gruesome task. He had no real understanding of the consequences of his actions, thinking he could simply get away with it. But what he failed to factor in was the kindness of his parents and how their disappearance would immediately raise suspicions. Despite the mountain of evidence stacked against him, Joel Guy Jr. still pleaded not guilty, dragging his family through a painful 4-day trial. He knew he couldn't win. It was clear to everyone that he was guilty, but he wasn't trying to win. Instead, he wanted to make his family suffer. By refusing to admit what he'd done, he kept control over them, forcing them to hear every ugly detail of his crime. It was like his final act of revenge, making them live through his cold, calculated cruelty. Even Joel's defense lawyer struggled to defend him. All they could muster was that Joel was a kind man who couldn't possibly commit such a horrific crime.
Friendly and happy, in a way Michelle Tyler had never seen him before. Outgoing, friendly, and happy. That was not a man about to commit a homicide. Outgoing, friendly, and happy.
But the jury wasn't swayed by this weak argument. On October 2, 2020, Joel Guy Jr. was found guilty of 2 counts of premeditated first-degree murder, 3 counts of felony murder, and 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Additionally, his appeal to overturn his conviction was shot down by the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals in April 2023. With that, Joel's fate was sealed. He will now spend the rest of his life behind bars at the Northwest Correctional Complex in Tiptonville, Tennessee, where he will forever live with the consequences of the brutal crime he committed. Now, remember when we first said that not much was known about Joel's past? Well, as the trial went on, a surprising revelation came to light. Joel actually had one and only one friend. People were shocked to find that Joel had a friend he cared so deeply about that he even called him in prison to apologize. That friend's name was Michael McCracken.
Have much of a chance of being happy anymore, but you do. You do. Eventually you're going to meet somebody, and you've claimed that I haven't been an albatross or anything before, but I certainly would be now. In freaking prison. On that basis, I think you should probably just sort of consider me dead and move on with your life. So, I'm not going to try to initiate any more contact with you beyond.
Very little is known about the nature of Joel and Michael's relationship, but it seemed that, at the very least, Joel respected him. The two met when they lived together in their high school dorms, and when Joel went off to study at George Washington University, he left after just 1 semester and transferred to Louisiana State University, where Michael was going. They ended up living in the same apartment building, and when Michael's roommate moved out, Joel moved back in with him. Some have speculated that their relationship might have been more than just friendship, but that's all we really know about the situation. When Michael was questioned about the case, he stated that he wasn't surprised that Joel had killed his parents. He explained that, over the years, Joel had become increasingly reclusive, spending weeks on end alone in his bedroom to the point where Michael sometimes didn't see him for months at a time. For whatever little comfort it may offer, Joel will spend the rest of his natural-born life in prison, exactly where he belongs. He will forever be remembered, not as the genius he thought he was, but as a gigantic fool who couldn't take care of himself and, despite his so-called wisdom, made the catastrophic mistake of leaving a notebook, a kind of manifesto, at the crime scene. But what do you think about this case? I mean, we can all agree that Joel was definitely a psychopath, right? It's hard to believe he had any real justification for killing his parents, other than his own twisted desire to live a carefree life. But do you think there were other factors behind his actions? Was there something deeper going on that we're missing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like the way we create these videos and you want to help bring more cases like this to light, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Thank you once again for watching.